Alright, man, peace. So, brothers, this is going to be volume 2 in a series that I recently started called Are You Ready to Be Married? And this edition in this series will be featuring Mr. Lorenzen Wright, the deceased former NBA player. He played with the Memphis Grizzlies, the Atlanta Hawks. He was on quite a few teams over the course of his career. And it will also be featuring his ex-wife, Miss Sherra Wright Robinson. And what I want to focus on in this series is whether or not you brothers understand what you're getting into. Not only when you get quote unquote married, meaning the contractual obligation, but just what it means to be in a quote unquote serious relationship with a modern day female. And everything is not always the woman's fault. A lot of it is our fault because as men, we're supposed to exhibit foresight, understanding, prudence, discernment. If you don't feel confident that you truly have those qualities yet, or that you've mastered some of those aspects or characteristics of what you should be exhibiting in your day-to-day life, do not try to initiate a quote-unquote serious relationship, because there are a lot of things that we all have to work on as men. None of us are perfect. Hopefully, nothing will end up as severe as how it ended up with Mr. Lorenzen Wright for you or me or anyone else. But this is why it's so relevant. So many of these stories are pertinent as cautionary tales. And this is why I make these videos for you brothers, especially for you cats out there 15, 17, 21 years old who are not quite sure what you're getting into when you start to engage in a rapport with these females, because they have a lot of demons on them. And to be quite frank with you, a lot of males, a lot of men have demons on them as well. And it's very difficult for you to see the demon on someone else if you're clouded by your own demon. For those of you who don't know, Lorenzen Wright, he was murdered back in 2010, and his ex-wife was found to be the person who coordinated the murder, the hit. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
TMZ Sports, Evan here with Michael J. Babcock.
What's up, man?
Man, one of the craziest murder mysteries ever.
I wouldn't quite call it crazy. It didn't really surprise me. To be honest with you, if someone's killed, murdered per se, and we don't know where to start, you always start at the spouse or the ex-spouse and verify whether or not one or both of them were engaging in extramarital affairs, if there was some money on the line, something like that. And in this case, that's exactly what was going on. Now, just to provide some backstory for some of you brothers who might not be familiar with this case, Lorenzen Wright, once again, was a former NBA player, which means what? He made millions of dollars over the course of his career. It started to flame out. Miss Sherra Wright Robinson clearly was disenchanted by him. They separated. And I believe that it was the year in which they separated, or quote unquote got divorced in 2010, that she subsequently ordered a hit out on his life by one of the deacons at her church. And brothers, I tell you this all the time. This is why I always encourage you to try to up your knowledge and your wisdom. Knowledge is an aphrodisiac. The woman, for the most part, is an open vessel for demons. Many people are not going to like me saying that. It is what it is. And that's why they're always searching for some type of spiritual sustenance. They're always looking for a man to lead them. That's why in this Luciferian society, they push and promote women as leaders, whether it be spiritual, political, etc., because they're trying to encourage the woman to believe that she can lead herself, even though it's embedded in her DNA that she needs to find a man to lead her. So that leads to all type of confusion in the household. And on top of that, you have so many of these young black boys who are being raised by women. So it's difficult for them to improve their wisdom, their knowledge, their understanding, their discernment, their prudence, because the woman exhibits very little of any of those traits. For the most part in this society, everything is taken care of for the woman as long as she puts her best foot forward, of course. They do have to work to get certain things, but this society affords avenues for the woman, especially the so-called black woman, to be a success, because they're trying to enlarge that gulf between the so-called black man and woman in Western society, because it's the black man who is the threat. It's the black man who's the threat and who's the enemy of this society, not the woman. The woman is not a threat at all, never has been, never will be. She's a pawn going all the way back to the garden, because Eve was a pawn. And there's no disrespect to the sisters or women in general. Women are beautiful. They bring things to the table that cannot be replaced. But for the most part, they're out of their minds in this current society. They're going to have to be recalibrated, but that can't happen until brothers present a uniform front And we reestablish the code of conduct so that the woman knows that she can't go to different men and hear a different story. She's not going to be able to go to another man and hear what she wants. She's going to know that wherever she goes is going to be the same code, the same ethics, the same morals, etc. That's the only way that the woman is going to change and that she's going to learn. Berating her and trying to go tit for tat with her, that's only going to empower her, because women love nonsense. They love confusion. They're agents of chaos in general. They have unbelievable redeeming qualities, sure, but they have to be led. And those of them who refuse to be led have to be rendered obsolete. They have to be made to understand that they have to get in line in order for us all to win. But that's going to come down the line. Just getting back to the story right here and what I was saying. Supposedly, this person, Sherra Wright Robinson, met the gunman in church. He was a quote-unquote deacon in church. So that means what? She was most likely having an affair with him. And the only reason why she was giving him the vajayjay, the vagina, the coochie, whatever you want to call it, is because she was trying to soup his head up to kill this man, which is something that a simp will do. This is why I talk about simps. Because the main way that the woman will try to manipulate you is through vagina. That's why when you first meet them and they're either in their infatuation stage or act like they're infatuated with you, they're always very accommodating with the vagina. It's when the infatuation stage starts to wear off, or when they're going into phase 2 of their manipulation tactics, that they start to ration away the coochie like a drug dealer does with his drugs, because they know that they have you hooked, or they're trying to see if they have you hooked. And that's clearly what happened with that simp at her church who was the deacon. She threw some stuff at him, and after a while he was willing to do whatever she wanted. And that's why he's going to prison for life, or I'm not quite sure exactly what the sentence is that he received, but she also pleaded guilty, and she's going to get 9 years in prison, which is a very, very light sentence for what she did. And we're in the Me Too era, so what she tried to claim is that Lorenzen Wright was beating on her, that he was abusive to both her and the children, in order to make herself what most women love to make themselves at the end of the day, the victim. Because they have entitlement issues. We all know, or at least those of us who pay attention understand, that women have a serious problem with accountability. They do not like to admit when they're wrong, unless they're dealing with someone with such an unbelievable amount of power over them that they're willing to say whatever in order to get back in their good graces. For the most part, if a woman apologizes to her man, it's because he has so much more money or so much more prestige, or she's so enamored with him, especially early in the relationship, that she's going to do or say anything to quote unquote make him like her again. But just once again, to return to what we're talking about, this brother here, Lorenzen Wright, married her. And according to her, he was involved in a drug game, which is possible. Who knows? A lot of these professional athletes, they dabble in other things. In the Major League Baseball world, there were some former baseball players who were just busted for being involved in a drug cartel. Octavio Dotel being one of them. For those of you cats from the New York area who were Mets fans back in the 90s, you remember Octavio Dotel. He was a pitcher. He was found to be involved in a drug game. Maybe Lorenzen was, maybe he wasn't. He's in the spirit world now, so he cannot defend himself. His wife or his former wife can say anything that she wants about him. And that's what I'm really trying to push in this series, is that brothers, make sure that you understand what you're getting into when you sign that contract to say, I'm married to this person. Are you ready to be married? Is the female that you're contractually obligating yourself to ready to be with you? These are all things that you have to consider in this Babylonian society that we live in. This is modern day Babylon. Please understand this.
First round NBA draft pick.
A 7th overall pick, Evan, a guy who was a stud on the basketball.
He was killed in Memphis, Tennessee, and now 9 years later, finally, officials believe they have the person who orchestrated his killing in custody, and that person is his ex-wife. This is correct.
You know, brothers, in Ecclesiasticus and the Apocrypha, for those of you who have a King James 1611 Bible, in the 25th chapter, it tells you that there's no wickedness like the wickedness of a woman, man. And I want you to understand that, not from a quote-unquote misogynist perspective or an allegedly chauvinist perspective or MGTOW or hating women. It's about understanding the woman. When the scriptures say there's no wickedness like the wickedness of a woman, when it comes to plotting and machinations, as they say, there's a very thin line between love and hate. Never put anything past anyone, okay? That woman that you're laying in bed with that is so lovey-dovey with you, laying on your chest and all these other things, willing to accommodate you, she can turn on you, especially if the winds change. The woman is capricious and whimsical. In their essential nature, they're wonderful. Like Method Man said, nothing makes a man feel better than a woman. But at the same time, that is why Satan works through the woman, because Satan understands, or the spirit of the adversary understands, that the man seeks out his greatest comfort through the number one gift that the Most High gave him, that being the woman. So it's very important that we understand what our chain of command is. We look up to the Most High. We don't look to the woman for inspiration. Because what if she changes? What if she alters? That can mess up your whole mind. There are men who are 6 feet underground. They're in prison. They're in jail. They're incapacitated because of their infatuation with the woman.
Now, the guy we're talking about is Lorenzen Wright. He was the 7th overall pick in the 1996 NBA draft. Played for the Clippers, played for the Grizzlies, played for the Atlanta Hawks, the Kings, the Cavaliers. Played in the league from 96 to 2009.
Had a really long, successful NBA career.
Yeah.
And notice, his NBA career lasted until 2009. By 2010, they were divorced. Brothers, I heard a stat recently. I believe it may have been on the Christine He Hate Me Leahy show. She was having a sit-down interview with a former offensive lineman from the NFL who's now a Hollywood producer. And he was stating that NFL players who get married during their NFL career, after they retire, they have an 80% divorce rate. An 80% divorce rate. And I'm sure that the stat is relatively close to that for NBA players who retire. Why is that? Because most of these women are marrying for prestige. They're marrying for notice. They're marrying for fame. We always have to understand the mind of the woman. Many people don't grasp why I say that the woman is a child with breasts. That's because children like to be occupied. They like to be entertained. You ever see some of the comments that females make on many of these social media platforms? They say, "I love to laugh." "I love to smile." What does that really mean? That means that they're looking for someone to entertain them. For the most part, until the woman is in her mid-40s, she thinks that life is an amusement park. That's why in strong societies, the woman has to be strongly moderated. Moderated with love, but still moderated. There have to be strong boundaries placed around the woman when it comes to how she dresses, what she's told, what she's taught. Because once you displace the woman, you displace the family, because it's the woman's job to moderate over the children. So this is why we have so many problems. But once again, just getting back to Lorenzen Wright, and it's no disrespect to this brother, I'm pretty sure that his mind was not trained on how to handle many of these things. Because so many cats get caught unaware when it comes to the woman. You're an NBA player. A lot of these NBA dudes and NFL dudes, they think that they're living the high life. They're out there on the road. They're banging random broads, not understanding that their wife is at home, probably doing the same thing. Spending their money, hiring babysitters, and going out with random dudes all around town.
He was, from most of the people liked him. He was well liked in the league. He went missing in 2010 for 10 days, and they finally found him dead in like a swamp in the Memphis area. His body was riddled with bullet holes.
I remember the story at the time. People were really devastated and shocked that this...
Yeah, he was lured out into the woods by her simp. Brothers, never underestimate that mother goddess energy and how it impacts a simp. That's why I always target simps. They have to be targeted. They have to be spotlighted because they exhibit a very deleterious mentality. It's harmful and hurtful to everyone involved when that simp energy is allowed to multiply, when it's allowed to propagate outward. It affects how you think. It tears down the ruling class mentality because you're always turning to the woman to make final decisions. And the woman, being a narcissist, is going to accept that even though she knows in her heart that the man is the head. It's very difficult for many females to grasp that or to acknowledge that in its fullness. Even now, on many of these social media platforms, on YouTube, you'll see a female comment, "Oh, I allow my husband to lead." When you say you allow someone to lead, what they're really saying is that they don't really believe that the man is above them according to the dictates and the hierarchy of the Most High. It's almost like, I'll allow my son to drive the car. He's 17 years old. He has his license. But I'll be here to watch him and make sure that he's doing things properly. That's how the modern day liberal female views you, black man, like her son. You're just her son that gives her penis. As long as you stay in line. The only way that they don't view you in that way is if you have so many outstanding attributes that kind of engulf them that they're in awe of you. They're like, wow, this person has made so much money, or this person is so smart, or they're so successful, they have property, so on and so forth. But these so-called regular relationships, the modern female spends all her time trying to figure out how to get you to understand that she's your head. And it would not surprise me if Lorenzen Wright had this dynamic in his household. And you always have to be wary of the relationships that the person who you believe is your wife or your woman is establishing in her church and at her job. Because most of the quote unquote adulterous liaisons or affairs that a woman is going to have who's married is going to occur with a guy at work or someone in her church, especially at church, where many of these liberal black women go to satiate their spiritual fervor. They need to be somewhere where they could jump up and down, sweat, and hear what they want to hear, which is what most of these so-called black churches are about. Telling the modern liberal black female what she wants to hear as opposed to what she needs to hear.
Happened to Lorenzen Wright.
Today, moments ago, his ex-wife, Sherra Wright, pled guilty to the facilitation of murder and facilitation to commit attempted first-degree murder.
Now, according to her defense attorney, Lorenzen Wright used to beat her so bad that it altered her face or deformed her face. Her face is not different because Lorenzen Wright used to beat the hell out of her. Her face is different because she's aging. And when you're constantly cogitating on acts of wickedness and trying to concoct different machinations that you can use to make people think that you're a better person than you are, your face will change. The scriptures tell you that a person's countenance gets dark, or you could tell what type of person someone is by their attire or their countenance. You can look at this person here. If you look at some of the old photos of her with Lorenzen Wright, she's aged rapidly because she was caught doing what she did.
Officials say that she was the mastermind of a plot where she and another man, a guy that she met at church actually, a guy named Billy Turner, they attended the same church, that they had gotten together and basically plotted and together executed this plot to murder Lorenzen Wright.
Brothers, that church spirit is a heavy spirit, man. I did a video a very long time ago called The Black Church Problem, and I kind of put it together choppily. When I decided to go into that black church topic again, because I'm going to pick up that series where I left off, it's going to be far more incisive, because that is an insidious element in the so-called black community. Number one, they don't know what the hell they're talking about according to the scriptures. But number two, that really is just a witch coven for the most part. Are there exceptions to the rule? Are there so-called black churches out there that are better than others? Yes, but for the most part, they're all just extensions of the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system. A lot of it has elements of the charismatic movement, which is just conjuring through the third eye. I have brothers who ask me about quote unquote speaking in tongues. What they do in the so-called black church is not speaking in tongues according to the scriptures, brothers, for those of you who don't know. A tongue is a language. So when you speak in tongues, let's say, for example, if you only know the English language, if you were granted the spiritual ability to speak in tongues, that means I can speak Russian, I can speak Mandarin, I can speak Japanese, and I never learned it. That's what the scriptures mean by speaking in tongues. I can speak Greek, and I was never taught it. I wasn't raised speaking Greek, but suddenly I can speak Greek. That's what that's in reference to. That is not talking about that Baba Bashantai, Shamlalala, all that bullshit that these people doing in the church. Okay? But once again, if you find that your woman likes going to church without you, that's something for you to keep in your mind's eye, because she's receiving sustenance there that she's not receiving from you. That's why, once again, you brothers should get into your scriptures and raising up your wisdom. I know a lot of cats out there don't believe in the Bible. That's on you. Whatever you believe your fountain of knowledge is, you should up it, because you're supposed to be the conduit for your woman receiving knowledge, not another man. A woman is not supposed to be going to another man to receive edification on concepts and precepts of the scriptures or whatever tome you adhere to. She's supposed to be coming to you. That's how you build up the rapport with your woman. The mental sex is just as important as the physical sex.
What ended up happening was that he was shot to death, like I said, in Memphis. But for years, officials were looking into this. They were investigating. They were trying to find out who killed him and why.
They were really not. It was kind of at a standstill. They were really not sure what happened to Lorenzen.
But now they were able to strike a plea deal with the ex-wife, and she.
And you know what's so interesting about this case also, brothers? This person, Sherra Wright Robinson, remarried to someone who worked with the Memphis Police Department. So could it be that she has certain plugs in the Memphis Police Department who are going to help her or assist her with getting away with the crime? Who knows? But I recently did a video about a Caucasian triumvirate. It was a case in Florida. I'm trying to remember the name of the perpetrators. I believe it was Williams, last name Williams. It was in the Watch Your Friend series. There was a certain person, I believe his name was Mike Williams. He had a friend who was infatuated with his wife unbeknownst to him. And he also ended up getting killed out in the swamp and had his body partially eaten by the alligators, I believe it was. And eventually, Mike Williams' friend and his ex-wife turned on each other. This is what happens a lot. A lot of these guys who come up missing, it's because the wife is setting them up, man. Brothers, take your time getting to know these women. That falling in love spirit is a demonic spirit. It's equivalent to someone who's hooked on the strongest heroin. You're supposed to love your wife, but you love with your brain. You don't love with your heart. A lot of these females out here, they believe that they want to be in a relationship that's based on being in love because that's where they get their power from. The woman can only manipulate you if you, quote unquote, are in love with a certain aspect of her, whether it be her vagina or the alleged promise of being a loyal consort. But in all reality, once again, we have to remember we're in Babylon. So you deal with each subject, each case, moment to moment, every day. We have to be reevaluating ourselves and reevaluating the person that we're with. Because to be quite frank with you, for the most part, women are actresses. Okay? They live their whole life trying to perpetuate an act. That's why it's very easy for them to put on fake eyelashes, makeup, lipstick, fake hair, push-up bras, girdles, high heels, etc. Their whole life, for the most part, is an act. And then they have the nerve to blame men for why they feel motivated to do that. When in fact, when men were in control of how the woman dressed, she was always desexualized and covered. So when we start to study the woman, we get a greater understanding of why we have to approach them with great caution and great patience.
To plead guilty. She basically got 30 years in prison, but she's up for parole in 9 years, so she could be out in 9 years, which is a good deal for her because she was facing over 100 years in prison.
Right, which would have obviously been the rest of her life. I mean, 30 years sounds, I guess, reasonable, although Lorenzen, he doesn't have 30. He lost his life. The fact that it is possible that she could get out after only 9 years.
And I promise you, she's going to get out after 9 years. She's going to get out with so-called good behavior. And they're going to try to make a sympathetic case for her because she's a woman, she's a mother with 6 children. And she's already tried to state that he was abusive, so on and so forth, and that he was involved in a drug game, which you never know. As I've already stated, you never know. But this video is really about what those of us who are alive today need to consider in our daily comings and goings.
Is absurd to me.
It's
to be
crazy.
honest with you, this man lost his life, a very promising life, at a very young age, and that the fact that she could be walking free.
He was only 34 years old back
So
then.
how can you rationalize that she could only get 9 years in prison? It's not justice, sir.
Well, here.
It's very simple. It's because simps like you constantly try to perpetuate the image of the woman as the victim. And that trickles over into the judicial system, into the entertainment world, etc. Very rarely are women held accountable for what they do and for their actions. That's why, once again, brothers, the hierarchy is the Most High first and then everything else after that. The woman comes and goes. You might be out on a date with a female on Tuesday. You guys are laughing, giggling, drinking. On Wednesday, y'all never speak again. You never know what could happen in life. So you always put the Most High first.
Her attorney said today outside of court, he said that her whole side of this was that she claims that she was physically abused by Lorenzen for years, and she finally got to the end of her rope and acted the way that she acted.
Well, that's an alibi that's built for the Me Too era. He was beating on me. I would hope that you could provide some eyewitness testimony from your children or maybe colleagues at work that you showed up with bruises, or some type of pictorial evidence, police reports, etc. But I'm pretty sure that she has none.
Family members on Lorenzen's side say that's a load of crap.
She was too busy fucking the cops to have police reports filled out.
What really happened was she wanted to kill him because he had $1 million life insurance policy.
Not only did she collect the $1 million life insurance policy, but she spent it just like that. The life insurance policy that was for his children.
And she wanted to collect the money,
Right.
And this was all about the cash.
Right.
It had nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah, look, if there is, by some crazy chance, some incidences of domestic violence, you go to cops. You don't concoct a plan to ruthlessly murder somebody. It sounds like complete nonsense, and her trying to justify her actions.
Well, not
Because that's what it is. I mean, it's good that you're having this moment of clarity. I guess you were able to see through your simp fog for a moment.
9 years later. I mean, it took him 9 years to get to this point.
So
He
she's
died
out
in
for
2010.
nine-
We're in
so
2019 now.
Yeah, so she's out for 9 years while they're trying to figure out what happened, and then she finally agrees to plead guilty, and now could only do 9 years in prison. It doesn't seem right to me.
They have kids together. Lorenzen's mom is actually making a push to get custody of the kids. She said he's got some beautiful kids, and she wants to be in control of raising them. And quite frankly, that makes sense to me. I don't understand why anybody else would get them at this
Right, well,
point.
the mother...
Well, according to the children, they're not really willing to fall under the subjection of his mother. I believe that there is some distance in that family. And besides that, many of the children are older. I think he has twins who just graduated from high school. There's a daughter who's 21 years old. So there's only so much raising that's going to need to be done for the remainder of the children. I'm not quite sure how old the other three are.
They have nothing to do with raising the children after what she did, killing their father.
But anyway, brothers, once again, always remember there's a very thin line between love and hate. Another saying that I was told repeatedly as a child was that when your friends become your foes, out the window your story goes. Always remember that those closest to you are privy to information that can be used against you if they choose to do so. And as the scriptures tell us in Micah, the 7th chapter, be careful what you tell that person who lays on your bosom, talking about your lady. Always watch those who are around you. Don't be paranoid per se, but at the end of the day, walk circumspectly. Know why you're with someone. Pay very close attention to the signs. Watch the energies, because that pays dividends, man. Don't end up one of these guys 10 years down the line talking about I was married to her for 9 years and I can't believe she did this to me. She cheated on me and now she wants to take a lot of my money. A lot of you guys could have saw this coming if you paid attention. A lot of you guys got your girl by stealing her from another guy. So you expected her to be faithful or loyal? I mean, come on. There's certain things that we have to note when it comes to how we deal with people, because it creates good energy or bad energy. So peace.